recruiter. She's doing the course you just saw. It's also nice to see that she also wants to learn more about the design. And one thing I would like to share about what VRU is doing specifically for design. We use in our whole methods of what we do. We do think, build, optimize. So we don't only build something and then throw it to the customer, but we also really think with them to optimize and to maintain in the future. We as VRU Amsterdam specifically have a focus on finance. So we're working for banking clients and insurance clients, and that's also really interesting to see how the future would look like. And therefore, we are also really happy to host this specific meetup about the future. And we're also really curious what the future would bring and what we can do for banking and other finance clients in order to engage with the future. So we're really curious. Thanks.
And today we are with the topic of designing new realities. So please welcome James Russo, our first speaker.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me. As Sabrina said, I'm Jamie Tosu. I'm a product and design and strategy leader, but I'm originally from the United States, but I've made Amsterdam, Netherlands my home base for the last 8 years. So I've been here a little while now. I'm currently working for TopTal. I mentioned that a while ago. I'm a delivery manager, so I basically specialize in remote team management as well as large-scale environments, interactive environments, and consumer products, and also guiding brands through strategic discovery, delivery, and beyond. So my first real design job, which was quite a while ago, it was 2 decades ago, I was working on interfaces that were meant for exercise machines that were meant to go into space. So since then, I really got wrapped up in the idea of using really larger-than-life technologies to tell stories and communicate brand value. As I've worked the gamut of design and management jobs over my career, I've had the sincere pleasure of working in this niche industry, and I really just want to share with you all how you might get started so that you can transport people to other worlds. So the first thing you might be thinking are, what are interactive environments, right? What is that? So when most people think about the word interactive, they think of standard mobile desktop applications that allow for some form of point and click or touch engagement. But I'm here to encourage you to think past the boundaries of handheld or small-scale products and really make users active participants in life-size experiences. So as humans, we have intrinsic curiosity that always needs to be nurtured. Now that we live in an ever-present touch-focused world and the Internet of Things, to users, nothing is off limits, right? They want to just feel everything. So a lot of us have spent time in conferences, trade shows, or museums that feature large-scale interactives. I'm sure that some of you can think of a few installations right now that piqued your curiosity, and while some are really noteworthy, others can really tingle the senses and leave us wanting more. So take Planets by Team Lab, for example. This is a Japanese studio, just one of their many awe-inspiring pieces. The spectators paint on the water surface while koi fish swim around their limbs and react from human motion. So while this lies more in the art space, we can still learn a lot about its possibilities and the limitations of digital environments, and challenge ourselves to incorporate multiple senses, not just touch alone. People are demanding more and more out of their experiences, and we have more opportunities to reach them than ever before. So providing information or telling stories that are really larger than life, right? It can help the audience suspend disbelief and help them feel immersed in another world. known references to interactive gesture control was written in Robert A. Heinlein's novella, which was called Universe in 1941, in which he describes controlling machinery circuitry by just placing his hand over a light instead of physical controls. That was in 1941. So as technology and its possibilities of human and machine interaction evolve over the years, and it's continuing to evolve, there's been many fictional interfaces designed for sci-fi, TV, or film that have enticed our imagination. So arguably, one of the most iconic heads-up displays is showcasing gesture control, and what I personally think the concept of neural links, which boasts being able to capture data from the brain, or maybe like in this example, dreams or memory. So it should come as no surprise that this once fantastical idea actually became reality, right? And it was first unveiled at John Underculfer's 2010 TED Talk, pointing to the future of UI, where he demoed Oblong Industries' multi-model technology called G-Speed. So that's what he's demoing here. There are so many technological opportunities to immerse and engage in an audience, and to make them feel like they're part of the story. So as these fantasies really become more and more richly part of our modern reality, we are able to immerse users and create different realities other than our own. So I have some more examples here to show you. So this one is called Brum Rum by David Torrance and Arctic 3 Studio. So they created a memorable interactive installation in a Barcelona public square, where he likes to describe it as an enormous interactive graphic sculpture that reacts with voice control and ambient noise, changing the shape and color according to the intensity of the sound. Gatorade and DeModern created Gatorade Mobile Roadshow. This was a traveling interactive retail experience that went around the United States, consisting of over 20 personalized check-in stations with RFID tags, object tracking displays, so that's like physical objects on tables and the like, and touch experiences which engaged visitors and created really a lasting brand impression. So this one is one of my personal favorites. In Skull Mapping's Le Petit Chef, dinner time experiment stories, wherein a miniature chef turned a dinner plate into a grill with projection mapping. And the restaurant goers were delighted when their very own miniature chef was in front of them grilling up their dinner. So that charming miniature chef really makes waiting for your food more enjoyable. And the restaurant goer falls in love with the character's strengths and weaknesses, right? Telling a story. So it's not a bad way to wait for food. So this one is holographic projection, and while this is a more polished version of really the famous Tupac hologram performance, right? This is done by Department Event Marketing and Scylla Sveta, and this was in this Stanislavski, I can't even pronounce where it is, it's in Moscow, where it was a holographic ballet, where in their words, the dancer picked up stars with his hands, plunged into the ocean, found himself inside a storm cloud, and danced with his 3D clone and evoked the new BMW 7 with the power of light. This is a live performance. It's pretty incredible. And of course, I have to mention the mysterious and super hyped Magic Leap augmented or mixed reality spatial computer that lets you see and interact with digital content in the world around you. I think Robin, who's the following speaker after me, will go into this a little bit more in detail. But I definitely would love to swim around with jellyfish. living room. Or virtual reality. By the way, this one is actually a VR arcade here in Amsterdam Noord, where you can team up with your friends or colleagues to work together to save the world from zombie apocalypse or alien invasion. And it's pretty fun. I actually went with a bunch of my colleagues from Total and a while back. It was very fun. So the possibilities are really endless. So there are a number of reasons why you or your clients may want to create an experiential environment. Maybe as a companion to a mobile or desktop product, or simply to stand out amongst a sea of competition, to get your brand name out there. I found in my experience that there are clear business and user values that can be seen when providing environmental design. So you can increase the brand awareness. In a busy Moscow mall, S7 Airlines and Wyden & Kennedy teamed up for their Fly to Any Place You Can Imagine campaign to encourage travelers to dream beyond their borders. And with their imagination machine, that's what this was called, they were hooked up to an EEG device on their heads, where purely with the power of their imagination, they were able to fly a virtual plane to their dream destination anywhere in the world. And if they were able to land at their location of choice without losing their train of thought, they would win a ticket to their chosen destination. Pretty cool. So experiential environments consume more physical space than standard interactives, which essentially are large advertisements that speak to the subconscious mind. I have a feeling that most of the contestants to this day can still recall which airline provided this experience, especially the one that won, I'm sure. It can also increase the audience and customer engagement and acquisition. So Nike's Unlimited Stadium, where they constructed a pop-up racetrack in the Philippines, was designed to encourage runners to compete with a digital version of themselves, constantly upping the ante by running faster than the runner's previous lap time, right? So they wanted to beat themselves over and over again. Not only was this race concept successful in gamifying Nike's signature challenge, but the fabrication itself, if you looked at it from above, originated from the footprint of their Lunic Epic shoe line. So it looked like a shoe print from above. Talk about brand strategy follow through, right? So it's an architectural piece as well. If the runners weren't Nike customers already, they probably heavily considered after such a fun challenge. It can also increase the knowledge acquisition and retention. And I would argue that this is also a user value. Live Singapore's Touching Transport by MIT Sensible City Lab and Smart Singapore enabled users to actively explore Singapore's bus network and view where passengers got on and off of public transportation. As digital marketers, we often have the responsibility to communicate really large volumes of data or information, which is not always easily digestible, right? So providing an up-close look at it, something that you can really play with and get your hands around, can really help the spectator absorb that information deeper and quicker, and hopefully retain it in the longer run. So we can also talk about the user value. You can immerse them by using all or multiple senses, right? Not just touch, not just your eyes. So a good example of a commercial take on this was Blade's pop-up Museum of Feelings, and this took place in New York, where attendees were surrounded with visual, tactile, auditory, and olfactory delights. That's 4 senses, which featured 5 zones, each with its own unique, interactive, multi-sensory experience. So So human sense is one of the best ways to connect with people on a fundamental level through memories and emotions. You can also capture them with an emotion or feeling. IBM Watson's The Color of Emotion created a massive real-time data art installation built from the company. So with empathy, we can begin to understand how people behave, feel, and think about the world around them, and encourage them to think outside themselves. Then visitors can be moved to either action or reaction by not only just that visual imagery alone, but also the overall feeling of the space or event. You can also enable them to learn by doing. Connected Worlds, developed for the New York Hall of Science, was designed to encourage water sustainability thinking, where children playfully diverted water flow into different environments. So incorporating that active participation as opposed to passivity, by allowing the audience to do and engage with it, to actively learn by experiences and ensure that most knowledge is retained. So giving the audience flexible roles so that they don't feel like there's one path, so that they can choose their own adventure, right? Allows people to feel like they're in control of their own destiny and that they are the author of their own narrative, thereby helping them trust their unique experience further. And they can also allow them to believe they've entered another reality. Right? That's what we're talking about. So Queensland University of Technology's CUBE is one of the world's largest digital labs and learning spaces, and it acts as an inspiring hub of scientific exploration for the academic community, the school students, and the general public. At 190 square meters, it's gigantic. This experience towers above the rest and showcases parts of our universe that most people will really never have the opportunity to experience. So teleporting people to far-off worlds or deep under the sea, completely out of their normal reality, creates a sense of wonder and curiosity that is palpable. Right? I want to know more. So that's a lot to observe and unpack. So where do you start? Like the great Albert Einstein said, art is standing with one hand extended into the universe and one hand extended into the world, and letting ourselves be a conduit for passing energy. So the first place to begin would be to get inspired. Look for examples that really blow your mind and take you out of yourself. I've already shown you many incredible examples today, and that's really just the tip of the iceberg. What's special about them, right? How can you improve on what they created? Experiential design is not only about creating something pretty to look at. It involves many different disciplines and copywriters. And that's not even the full list, right? You'll need to consider conditional factors such as environmental, material, functional, physical, social, and cultural characteristics that affect the whole of your installation and adapt your designs to fit its constraints. It's a lot to really consider. So depending on the environment, you may need to entice the user participation, as it might not be completely obvious that they can actually contribute. So you need to interest them by first attracting them to your focal point and creating a trusting, welcoming, and vibrant first impression to gain it subtly or really with a loud bang. It's really whatever is called for. Wowing your audience can go far when designing for large-scale spaces, but also the small details are just as important from a form and functional perspective. So engaging the onlookers with relevant, meaningful content can encourage the spectators to become active participants. Again, to become part of that story. It's a theme throughout. So storytelling is the key to creating emotional responses, eliciting a reaction, or potentially encouraging your audience to get involved in your cause. Whatever story we're telling the audience, the design solutions may have ethnographic or implications depending on the audience's cultural identities or social groups. As such, it's important to design with a standpoint of social and cultural responsibility. Formulating helps cultivate any seed that you planted at the beginning of their journey and follows them as their path unfolds. Participants can also discover a deeper understanding of a particular topic, learn more about themselves or others, for unique outputs that cannot be duplicated, and social sharing to spread awareness for visitor growth. This one is fun. It's individual frames drawn by different people to create an animation. Gamifying the experience allows for a friendly competition, working as a team to solve problems or allowing them to explore further by taking actions. So that they might uncover mysteries or new insights or new skills. The information that we provide the audience must be intuitive and clear so as not to create confusion or deviate from the end goal, yet also fun and real. So finally, if we require the audience energy, we need to give them something in return for the time and energy spent. So whether the goal is to educate, inspire, or share with others, the voluntary participation can be rewarded with added knowledge, an emotion, photos, accessible via account creation or some sort of trending hashtags. So whether or not you decide to implement some of these tips and techniques into your next project, really opening up your awareness beyond mobile and desktop experiences into the physical world will really empower you to create contrasting realities that will transport people to other worlds. So thanks for sharing.
Questions for Amy? No? And please, we will put up to Robin, our second speaker.
Yes, all set. I think so. Okay, yes, all finished. Okay, yes, welcome everybody. Thanks for inviting me for today. My name is Robin de Lange, and so this is another talk I do very regularly. It's the first of designers, so it's a bit of an experiment here. So I was planning to do a sort of a bit philosophical, zoomed out talk about mixed reality, and I wanted to make 2 points tonight. First is mixed reality is going to be one of our primary forms of interacting with computers. Second point is it's hard to overestimate how much that will affect our lives and our society. And thirdly, I want to, I hope you spend some time thinking about what these developments mean for as considerations for you as a designer. Let me tell you a bit about myself first. So I'm the founder of the VR Learning Lab. So there we research how virtual and augmented reality technology can be used to support education. How can you use these technologies for teaching and training? But also how can people solve new types of problems, or can they solve problems in new ways with the tools offered by these new computer interfaces? And so, sort of, the VR Learning Lab, sort of a spin-off company from my research at Leiden University. And here we do all sorts of teaching and training for educational professionals and also for students. So we're launching a program now where we actually, when a primary school doesn't have a teacher for a day, we provide a teacher who doesn't have a PABO background, but who can teach them about programming, and they'll create their own 3D worlds with code spaces. It's pretty cool. Actually, tomorrow I'm actually in front of a class of 11-year-olds, I think, helping another teacher, preparing another teacher. Okay, and we also do. So we sometimes work for different types of organizations, and we help them sort of forming a mixed reality strategy. So what kind of opportunities are there for their customers? Do their staff need actual training? And we also develop prototypes. So this is an event we're organizing together with my colleague Charlotte in the back. This is an event we're organizing, which still has a typing error in it, about how augmented reality can be used for all sorts of organizations. In Dutch, unfortunately. These are some clients. Okay. So the first point I wanted to make is, again, mixed reality is going to be one of the primary forms of interacting with computers. And I now use the term mixed reality. You can also talk about augmented reality, spatial computing, extended reality. Every trend watcher feels the obligation to find a new term for this. It gets all very complicated. I will not go into that discussion today. Okay, so this is a future that's being painted at the moment. Perhaps you've seen one of these HoloLens videos where they show how the world might look like when we start wearing their HoloLenses, and we can collaborate with people on the other side of the planet, and we can create things together in all new ways.
What this modern workplace looks like as we go forward. Digital transformation is really impacting every industry.
Yes, so perhaps you've seen one of these videos once, and they're pretty inspiring, right? They give a good sense of what might be possible, and and so you have all these. So this potential is sort of the explanation why all these tech companies are investing millions and even billions of dollars. Microsoft is building its HoloLens. Magic Leap is one of the biggest tech hypes in the past decade, I think. And there are all these rumors that Apple might be launching an augmented reality headset. Facebook is investing heavily in this space. Google. So many of these companies really regard this as one of the next new frontiers, one of the next computer paradigms where they all want to be a major player or even the biggest player. And they all follow the same sort of VC mentality there. Build the hardware, own the software. I think that's their main strategy. Okay, but we should be skeptical about this as well. So mixed reality is going to be one of our primary forms of interaction, but is it really? So these are a few examples. There have been quite a few initiatives which made very similar promises to the ones we're offered now, which pretty much failed, right? So we all know Google Glass, which was a pretty disappointing project. I think they still develop the second version, but only for really for the clients that already have. So some surgeons are working for them because they can't use their hands during operation. But I think we can safely say that Google Glass was one of Google's many failures. And or Layer, it was a Dutch company, received a lot of funding, and this was a video, a futuristic video they made. Experiences into the you can make, can you adjust the volume a bit? Oh.
Today with Leia you can experience history, art.
ATM finder, real estate, so how things looked 10 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. Foursquare, Twitter, tourism, sports, commerce, gaming, social. Gaming in augmented reality is a completely new genre. Interacting with objects right in front of you. You know, we got crazy shit on there with you moving around.
Yeah, they got crazy shit on there. I think they changed the owners a couple of times, and they changed business models 10 times or something. Yeah, so we have to be very. It's all VC money, right? So we have to be very careful in believing all these kind of videos, especially in augmented reality demos, because whenever you see a project that works beautifully on film, you don't know if it still works when you hold your hand in front of it, when the light is a bit different, when there are shadows. There are so many design environmental aspects that really change the performance. Okay, so but on the one hand, perhaps we have to be careful about these decisions, but on the other hand, this is a development people have been working on for decades already. Really before we had any computer interface, before we had any Windows or even DOS type of way of communicating with computers. People were already experimenting with augmented and virtual reality setups. Yeah, so I think we can safely say, at least I believe it. I believe this to be true. I believe this to be true that mixed reality is going to be one of our primary forms of interaction with computers. But the question is when. So I'm not going to make any strong statements about it. People have failed miserably in the past. But I was curious. I wanted to study a bit. Identify what are the limiting factors here. What do you think? What is the main limiting factor? What's holding the development? Yeah. Infrastructure.
Yeah, access to have some sort of hardware that interacts with software. It's not something that I think is accessible to many people in many places. So
Yeah.
Everyone has a phone.
Yeah. Yeah. So technology, the sort of
The
accessibility of the required technology.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Privacy. Pricing. Privacy. Always an issue. Yeah, definitely. And they said that was an issue with Google Glass. They called people wearing them glass holes, right? Because you had no idea where people were filming, whether someone was filming you. That's definitely an issue, but I'm not sure whether that's the main issue. So the first question is technology the limiting factor? So this is this very old graph from the 90s, mixed reality spectrum. So when you really look at virtual reality, so being completely immersed in a world, I think their technology is definitely not the limiting factor. We have perfectly capable hardware for 400 euros or something. But when you move into the augmented world, yes, technology is definitely a limiting factor. And so other limiting factors could be, so of course, technology is great, but you need to find applications that really add value. You need to find killer applications. But that not only that requires a lot, but also requires clients to really understand the technology and finding use cases for themselves and making budgets and understanding why that adds value. And another thing that might be, I think that's definitely a factor.
If I can ask a question, so you were saying that as we go into the mixed reality, it starts to be hard, but you didn't really answer if it was the problem that you asked when we move into the mixed reality.
Yeah.
Is it like hardware or software, or is it like
Yeah, okay, so it's technology. In augmented reality, it's really a complex set of all different types of sensing technology, and sometimes some things just work perfectly, and some things really don't. And it's still a bit hard to it's hard to say what kind of applications you have in mind actually can be built easily, and which ones are quite challenging.
Okay.
So I won't go into there. Yeah, so one thing I think limiting the whole propagation of VR is that people have to experience it, right? You can say, yeah, VR is great for this and this, but you have to wear a headset to actually really feel it. Okay, so mixed reality is going to be in our lifetimes a very important form of interacting with computers. But we're not really sure when that will be. And the second point I wanted to make is it's really hard to overestimate how much impact that's going to have. So I wanted to identify a few developments that I find interesting and that might affect you in your design decisions. Okay. So the first thing I find really interesting is how will augmented reality affect public space? So Pokemon Go was a really sort of first experiment in this, right? And so you had all these places where all of a sudden hundreds of people gathered, or here even 5,000 people or something. They gathered in a place where usually hardly anybody comes. Kijkduin was a famous place in the Netherlands. And it raises all sorts of questions, right? So that you have this extra layer of all sorts of digital incentives to come to a place. You can organize an event. Can you freely do this? Can you just organize an event in a random place in public space? And yeah, we're going to do a Half-Life VR, augmented reality Half-Life tournament here. Yeah, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, it's really strange, right? It's interesting. It's an interesting thing. So there are definitely a lot of considerations here when you're designing something here. So I think with the Pokemon Go, there were already a few issues. I think there were some Pokemon weren't they on a sort of disaster site in Haiti or something? So you had all these places where it was really, or they were inside in somebody's garden or something. So we already had all these issues about public space and what you can do in there, what you can do with public space. Okay, then another thing is, so how should we okay, so smartphones, they sort of have become a battleground for our attention. So of course, every company wants to build an app, and then they're on your phone, and then they can send notifications to you to keep you on top of mind whenever you want to decide something. That's just how marketing works. That's how our brains work. And notifications for smartwatches are actually pretty popular as well, which I find really. But is that really something you want for augmented reality? That we wear glasses that are looking something like this, so you can wear them all day, and you can instead of keep notifying you, distracting you from what you're doing at the moment because you get through messages, WhatsApp messages, or something happens somewhere in the world and you get a news alert. I wouldn't. It's not really a question. I think we definitely shouldn't want to be doing that. Instead of building an AR application, I think you want to support people in what they're doing at that very moment, not distract them from it. And I think we can take some. We can definitely learn from the field of calm technology, which is really in line with this statement, which consists of design principles which are not about active user participation, but more using the user's periphery of their attention. Okay, then another thing, I was already saying that this was going to be philosophical. So it's pretty intense, right? If people would really be wearing augmented reality glasses every hour of the day, and that they were directly augmenting their senses of the world. They were directly changing the way how people see the world. That's pretty intense, right? I'm not sure whether we're heading that way, but it would be really intense because one aspect of it, I think, is so that we sort of have we sort of have, yeah. Sort of all. Let me get back to we all sort of, I think we can all agree upon that, of course, everybody has their own vision of the world, and we have our brains see the world a bit differently. We all have our own experiences by which we see the world differently. But it's really something else than when you really start to personalize our direct perception of the world. That can be really intense, and you might even say that it can be very dangerous to people who are vulnerable for psychosis, because the inability to distinguish the imaginary from the real is almost the entire definition of having a psychosis. So this is pretty dangerous territory as well. Can people still manage to differentiate the real world from the imaginary? Okay. So then the final aspect I wanted to talk about today is so what I found really interesting is how augmented reality can be used to solve problems together with computer. So the field of artificial intelligence is really about autonomous software solving problems with only AI. What I always find more interesting is how can computers and people collaborate with each other to solve different problems. So when you're building an application like this, I think it's important to really watch out for any cognitive overload. It's really hard to overload the person when they're using an AR application. And yeah, when we want humans and people when we want humans and computers to collaborate with each other, we should really think about what the role of the user is there, what the role of the individual is there. So this is a pretty horrible example of it.
We work in a world filled with devices that can monitor us, locate us, and tell us what to do. And that raises the question, who
analyzing how
does work change when
process towards autonomous driving?
There's one
Everybody talks there about a situation where cars are completely autonomous, but we have this whole in-between area where the car is not autonomous yet, so they still require human workers, but only for the slightest jobs, for an ever decreasing amount of jobs. So perhaps only when you're off the highway, just the final part you need humans for it, or you need humans for the legal part. And and here you see very angry truck drivers who are being used as a cog in the machine of the entire autonomous, almost entirely autonomous system. But then, and they have a completely gamified world where they have to do this and this to gain extra points, and they're really just one part of the complex system, the complex logistical system. That's definitely not a future I would want. Something is going wrong with this. It should become that's my first slide. Okay. Yes. So I hope that I sort of reached my point. Again, I wanted to emphasize this was sort of philosophical talk. I hope you gain something from it. I would really like to know if you have any questions. Any questions? Yes. Sorry. Sorry, can you talk? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. So you actually see quite things happening in AI and law and robotics and law. They're really trying to catch up. I'm not sure whether there's a lot of legislation here. I would like to know more about it. Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Tell us more about what is the for
Yeah.
research or
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'll go over it. So it started out with research. So I'm still part-time employed at Leiden University, and there I research mainly how virtual reality can be used in education and training, and with the VR learning app. So we have all these gained knowledge, and a few years ago, the teachers were coming to us, and I want to, yeah, this sounds interesting. I want to make use of it in my teaching, and so we're giving we give a lot of training to that to geography teachers or vocational education teachers or university level or publishers or organizations who see that there's potential in VR to actually deliver something to put people in a different place, to practice skills that are really hard to practice. And we help them mainly in the first of those, forming a concept. Yeah, we don't do a lot of development, so we do some prototyping, but that's not our. So yet we're not mainly developing. Yeah, mainly in the first phase, finding concepts, what's already out there, what can I use, and yes.
So I kind of not caught this, but can you speak a little more about how exactly you predict AR can be used augmented intelligence?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So perhaps I wanted to cover a bit too much in this 20-minute talk. So the whole concept of augmenting human intelligence, that's a phrase that was introduced in 1962 already by Doug Engelbert. Doug Engelbert is really a legend. He was the main inventor of the computer mouse, and he sort of philosophized back then what personal computing might mean. It's really interesting to read about it because he's started, we're going to augment human intellect and really, it's really like reading a science fiction book. But he's predicting things like video calling, just working with spreadsheets, having presentations. So he's just talking about the personal computer and what we use them for every day. But he saw it as something completely magical and something that was going to change everything. So the term is actually pretty old already. And even in 1950 already, Lick Leiter wrote about man-computer symbiosis. So this term is coming back and back in all sorts of forms now. Hybrid intelligence is often used. So I think, so the term is pretty old, and the development is going on for decades. But now when we have a new type of interface, which allows for other ways of doing things, so perhaps you might be reading a text in a language you don't know, and it gets instantaneously gets translated to the language you're comfortable with. Or you can even have this conversation and you might see a subtitle, if you're speaking a language I'm not very capable. Or you could, this is the first example. Yeah.
It gives access to the entire internet.
Yeah.
Realm of knowledge within digital reality.
Yeah. But we have access to that now. Like we have it just in our phone. It's just on our phone, and we can reach it quite fast. But it really makes a difference whether it takes 5 seconds or 0.1. It's really a lot of difference in it. Because then if somebody asks you something and the AR device already gives you an answer or gives you a suggestion, or perhaps I scan the room here and I see it detects everybody's faces and it tells me something about perhaps I've met before, for example. And I'm horrible at faces, so it reminds me of this is what's your name? This is Mark guy. Oh, you met at in Lisbon 3 years ago. It's I could take a picture of you as well and look it up on the internet. But that's something different, right? If you immediately see it popping up, so there's a concept for that. It's called the information access cost. The information access cost. So how much cognitive effort or price or whatever, how much effort does it take to access information? And that augmented reality can drastically lower that information access cost, which I think is really makes us able to collaborate with them. Yeah? Okay. Any other questions? Perhaps a final question before Yes.
For people who have a regular UX job,
Yeah.
and they want to move a little bit towards VR or whatever.
Yeah.
Like with people to run, what are the chances? If people don't have the balls to run a company or have the budget to start some kind of project, how can you somehow shift your career towards VR?
Yeah, that's definitely a good question. And I see actually, so the whole VR space, it gets a lot of hype, but I see plenty of companies who are actually going out of business because it's still pretty hard to make the sell to companies to really see how it adds value for them. It's still pretty hard. And I would definitely advise if you're already working at a company to perhaps have a session and say, okay, so for which of our clients might this technology be useful? So a while ago we did a hackathon in a software company where the goal was exactly that. So we had all the colleagues were considering all the different clients, and so okay, we've seen these different. I've shown them a few interesting applications, and they start brainstorming. Oh, this might be useful for them and them, and so they have 10 IDs, and then we narrow it down to one per group, and they start building a prototype. And at the end of the day, they have something they can show to a possible client, because clients don't see it. They don't understand the technology. They really need help with the concept. So that's the main challenge, I think, and I think it's much easier to do that from an existing company with a client base than starting a new company.
Big corporate, and you have to find an excuse to build the bridge between. I don't find it easy at all. But it's an
what kind of organization do you work?
It's a startup, so they are not gonna get involved in that. I'm very curious about this, but I don't see a clear bridge between UX and VR. It's a bit because it's a field that
it's all UX, right? It's all.
It is. From what we normally do, let's say.
Yeah.
Towards this.
It's all UX because it's hiring programmers, right?
Is it?
It's all UX. Places like VR probably primarily hire machine learning people, programmers.
No,
they're not hiring machine learning.
We're not hiring any developers. So we mainly make concepts. So we're mainly have psychologists and people with mostly soft skills background. So many VR companies are mainly focusing on developers. But I think that's the main reason behind it is because budgets are so small. So I'm really jealous at the UX world, at the traditional UX world, because you really can spend time on making decisions. And in VR, okay, you just have a 20,000 euro client, and you have to buy hardware for that, and you have to develop entire concept, you have to do all these prototyping phases, and the budgets that are available are just so much smaller. And then you always need developers because otherwise you don't have anything. And, unfortunately, many companies that can afford UX designers. That's sort of the problem. Yeah. Any other questions? No? Okay. I think this slide, sir.
Thanks a lot for your talk.
Thank you very much. For your talk. You can find the slides at yourlearningwell.nl/UX days.
Yeah, we are also going to share the link in Slack and the meetup page, so you can also grab it. This presentation for you.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you for all the info. And just a few words before we can enjoy some beers. We have a Slack channel. We post job offers. We also help each other. We have like a very nice UX channel. UX help channel, and it's really growing. So please join. And we also have Instagram. We try to post the stories live for our events, and we also post a recap after our events, one day or two after. So it's possible if you join. And our next event will be on the 14th of November. It will be about the World Disability Day, and it's an event that we are organizing together with Amsterdam UX, another big UX community in Amsterdam. And since we are a community, we always announce announcements. So is anyone looking for a job, or do you have any job openings at your company, or are you organizing any event, something?
So I'm Julia, and I'm the one who started the UX design course. And I think we're going to finish in March, April, but I'm kind of looking around already for some positions.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Good evening, guys. So I had the European expansion of startup, and we actually recruit test users. So we have a test user for Europe. So we use some test user, have a chat with just so that
Anyone else?
Yeah, hi. My name is Anana. My background is in user research, strategy, and researching. So I just got back to the Netherlands after studying for the life school. And if anyone has the opportunity to look at that.
Anyone else? No? Okay, well, I think there are still some pizza and beer, so please enjoy. You can stay for a while. And thank you for coming.